back to another program of the Hit Play Show. We are the Hit Play Show, sponsored by nobody. Obviously, considering we only come on like once every 6 years.
Yeah.
I will say this: we make a show a lot sooner than James Cameron made this movie.
Yeah. Or the sequel.
Or the sequel. We are talking, of course, of Avatar, the original Avatar, the one with the blue people.
Not the
talking
Airbender.
about the Airbender. This movie came out a long time ago. It is
2009.
a modern staple a staple of modern blockbusters, really. My first question to you before we start delving into this movie: did this movie feel like it came out in 2009?
Ooh, that's a good question. No, it did not.
I agree. This movie could have came out 2 summers ago, and I would have said like,
Yeah.
okay.
In terms of both the visual effects and I was going to say the story, because the story is actually heavily inspired by stories from other movies. And so even that gives it more of a, like, I guess,
in real life,
timeless quality. Well, Dancing with Wolves is the basically predecessor to this movie in terms of films with that kind of narrative. And that comparison is obvious. I remember even back in 2009 watching it and being like, I've seen this before.
Yeah. That's like Reddit's #1 favorite critique of this movie. Like, it's not even anything special.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why you're on Reddit and on a movie set.
Or on a podcast.
Or on a podcast, exactly.
In terms of the special effects, honestly, if you don't look at their teeth or their mouth, it looks pretty fine.
Yeah.
It holds up
very
well.
I went in thinking, okay, it's going to show its age. Obviously, considering it's over 10 years old. It's going to show its age. Movies that are 3D animated and are so heavily
also just motion capture. I mean, you go and look at the Lord of the Rings, it looks like it was during the Windows XP or
era.
even I was thinking that, where there was not only that older motion capture movies like Polar Express, for example, as much as I love it, does not hold up whatsoever.
Oh, Lord.
It looks like Toy Story 1, pretty much.
Even Toy Story 1.
Yeah. There were definitely moments in Avatar where I was like, is this a Final Fantasy cutscene or is this like an actual Hollywood movie?
The first shot of the spaceship, I was like, no. It gets better, but that one for sure was like the worst shot of the entire movie. So I was definitely like, oh man. Did I get
just
duped?
use a model.
Did I get duped?
I went in thinking this is probably going to hold up pretty well. And I think a lot of that came down to just James Cameron having a much better grasp of visual effects and motion. I think it's like, and I was thinking this during the movie, I'm like, who else could have pulled this off? I think the Wachowskis, because they did Speed Racer, which uses visual effects in a rather similar way, not motion capture. I think Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9, which also he uses motion capture a lot too.
Yeah.
And then there was one other name I thought of.
You thinking of Denis?
I did think of Dune. A little bit, yeah. Not that this movie reminded me of Dune, but just I was thinking of Peter Jackson is also somebody else. I think like that group of directors who just seem to understand visual effects not just as a spectacle but as a storytelling device. Yeah, and I think that because James Cameron has that interest. Oh, George Lucas is who I was thinking of.
That's a good one.
There's just an approach to visual effects throughout this entire movie where it doesn't feel like it was let's almost like the Michael Bay version of it, where it was like, let's film the actors and then let's just copy and paste the visual effects here. This felt a lot more like everything came at once, I guess I'd say. And it's hard to actually articulate because the way that James Cameron approached the visual effects in this movie inspired stuff else. Transformers, or I'm thinking like the Marvel movies, for example. So it's hard to say that nobody does it better than him when everyone is inspired by what he did in this movie anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of, because I remember back in 2009 where the advertising for this movie was it's real people, but it's all digital.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and now that's like the modern marketing tool. If movies is like, let's just show Andy Serkis walking around pretending to be an ape.
Yeah, or Benedict Cumberbatch as a dragon.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that's what we get people to watch our movie. Is just hype.
Even now too, I feel like visual effects have kind of caught up to what felt like could only be done with motion capture, where now you don't even need like motion tracking suits. You can just
you put like the little dots on.
You put out the dots on them. They did that with Planet of the Apes. They filmed on sets or in like real environments. They just wore the suits on them. Or
even
you even have like
Avengers, the latest Avengers. I remember Mark Ruffalo talking about how like prior to I think it was like Age of Ultron, he was never on set, like ever. And then after Age of Ultron, they finally figured it out to where he could actually be there interacting with them.
Yeah.
Which is cool. To see.
The or I think of like
progress.
in Endgame too. In Endgame, they wear these suits, and the actual outfits and uniforms they wear were entirely CGI.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have to wear any like special motion tracking suit or anything like that. So it's like impressive. That being said, it still feels very underutilized.
In this movie?
Just how this movie has like affected visual effects.
I was gonna say, when I was like, this movie came out 5 years ago, I was like, that's a bad thing. I feel like
honestly, Planet of the Apes, that whole series is the only, maybe also The Hobbit. Those are like the only movies that I feel like directly are indebted to Avatar. Yeah. In terms of,
and a lot of video games as well.
Video games.
It's starting to seep into video games for better or worse. There's definitely an opinion on that.
There's an opinion on. It's like you guys can do all this amazing animation. That's great. All your games look exactly the same.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But what about you? You did not see this in theaters.
I did not know. I saw it at home when I was like a young wee lad. It was worth it.
Yeah.
It was a cool experience. I wish we would have gotten a nicer theater, like with a better sound. I'm like big into sound now. I don't know why. I wish there was more with the sound. Maybe it was the movie as well, just the soundscape and the sound design
pretty close
of
to
the film
too.
But as far as visually, this movie I think aged, for me at least, better than when I watched it the first time. Because when you're 9 years old watching a movie, you're like, oh my god, this is the greatest movie ever. And then it's like freaking The Mask starring Jim Carrey, and you're like, oh yeah, this is I was an idiot.
Yeah.
But this movie I'd been wanting to see. I had it penciled, and I'm excited to see the new one. But yeah, it was the thing I was most impressed. The thing I went into this movie kind of like focusing on was the visual effects, obviously, but like the implementation of or not the implementation, but like the lighting, more or less. How do you make these colors so vibrant? How do they pop? How do they interact with light sources, right? Like when somebody pops out of a shadow, what does it look like? Does it look good, or does it like kind of just look bland, like 2009? And for me, that to me is like the most impressive thing out of this whole movie is just the actual colors and the lighting in the way that I think, like you said, Cameron understands visual effects. And I think that is one of the things he understands is in order to make this feel real, whatever that means in terms of CGI, we have to actually be real. We have to use real physics. People can't just walk around and like, it can't be Superman punching Darkseid in the face like a million times at 7 million miles per hour, and they go from like this city to this city in 2 minutes. It's like, no, people need to fall in a weird way. They need to jump in a certain manner that, makes sense and it feels tangible.
I feel like that philosophy was probably what drove James Cameron to make it motion capture instead of just CGI in the first place.
Oh, for sure.
Is that the actual tactile actors in the room interacting with each other or with the environment. That I don't doubt. In terms of the lighting, only one single scene stuck out, and it was the one that I was like, this is a little uncanny valley here, which is where, spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 2009, by the way. Once they're in the tree of life, souls, whatever it was called. We just came out of the movie. I don't remember what it was called. Jake arrives on the giant pterodactyl, and he's like, I'm here to help you guys. And he is backlit by the sun, but it is shining directly on everybody else. And so there's almost no shadows on them. And it just looked kind of uncanny. That was when I was like, oh, don't look at their teeth. That's when it looks face. It's actually interesting. That made me think, because in terms of what I think makes them look so realistic, in terms of like, not just the fact that they don't look, they look humanoid,
but they're not.
But
humans.
They look familiar enough to not be alien. And I think a lot of that has to do with a ton of detail was put in the eyes and like the face, the upper half of the face. That's just psychologically speaking. When you look at the person, it's like the nose up is what you pay attention to anyway. So that's not so much like a criticism or critique. It's more just a fun little fact, I guess. If you go see this movie, pay attention to how the bottom half of the face is just like mouth and teeth. Detail on teeth, no, we don't need that. But the freckles in the eyes, yeah, we got that.
And pores and stuff like that. Yeah, that was really cool to see.
Now, a lot of hay is made about this movie for the visual effects, has since 2009. But since 2009, let's be honest, story in this movie, generic.
Well, yeah, I mean,
by the numbers. And that's always bothered me.
It's a summer blockbuster.
I was disappointed. Even back in 2009, I was like, you have this amazing technology, but I could just watch this plot in any other movie. I felt like if you're going to use this emerging technology, use it to do something different and interesting. And you did that with the visual effects, but the villains are too cookie cutter and almost cartoonish. Yeah. Like in a way that isn't humanly believable. And the science in the movie is literally explained away as science. And characters who are like, I'm the only rational person in the room, are then presented with a rational, like, an actual empirical argument against them, and are like, no.
Yeah, it does get.
I'm gonna discard that.
It gets a little silly.
And
at times.
Also, he's a colonel, but like, does he not? Is there not a chain of command existing above him? Did he ever get permission to just bomb this tree from anybody? Like, and then why is the business guy there to begin with? That has always bothered me about this movie. It's part of the reason why I didn't feel bad about taking a bathroom break, because I was like, even if I was watching this for the first time, I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So that being said, for the second Avatar movie, I am going in with the expectation that James Cameron, I guess, will hopefully have evolved in a way where he understands that this technology can be used for storytelling beyond what has already been done before.
But I mean, that's like James Cameron's thing now in his career is visuals, basic stories.
Yeah.
Since like Titanic.
Yeah.
Because even something like where he didn't direct it but wrote it, Alita.
Yeah.
Is still like
basic.
Average.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if it's, I mean, yes, it is fair to be like, I want more. Mm-hmm. But at the same time,
he's not the guy to give it to you.
You can't really teach an old dog new tricks.
Yes, that is true. But he's old enough that he should have a special enough trick in his back pocket that he can pull out to amaze us.
Also, even so, like
he made 4 others at the same time.
Older movies, aren't. I don't know. You think Terminator and Terminator 2 are like the most technically sound scripts to exist?
No, but that's just how I feel. Especially because he was clearly with Avatar pulling from the history of science fiction. There are so many references and nods to old school 60s and 70s science fiction. That era is like some of the most creative, not even science fiction, just like literary fiction out there. And there had to have been something in that I feel like you could just find a little, a left turn kind of influence. I'm hoping. Clearly, he's not afraid of wearing his philosophies on his sleeve, because you are beat over the head throughout this movie with a, nature good, military bad.
Capitalism. Did he think he's a user on late stage capitalism?
Yeah, that's basically what this entire movie is. Which, it's like I don't disagree with you, but like you can tone it down a little.
Yeah, there's a way to do it.
Like he said, I want this movie to have mass appeal, but I wanted to like not alienate anybody whatsoever. There are even reviews I saw online, I read through, where people are all like, there were like a reviewer, I think he was from Kentucky, was like, the theater stood up and clapped when the military was defeated. And I'm like, you guys are the most like war hawk people on the planet, and yet you're so happy when you're defeated in this movie. Like, clearly James Cameron,
he's a man of the people. Maybe James Cameron should run for president. He's a man of the people. He knows how to get us all on one side.
I know, seriously. The blue people. More than just the visual effects too, I think what impressed me the most was just the detail in the world itself.
Yeah.
The creatures, the actual plant life, the fact that when they walked, the grass glowed where they were walking. That was pretty cool. Like, and beyond that too, the actual, I guess, composition, I guess I would say, blocking is probably the better word. Because knowing that this is motion capture and probably filmed on a soundstage, there were so many scenes where I was like, what was standing in for that? Like, was Jake Scully fighting against like a giant square or tennis balls or something? Or like, and then when he had to attach himself and fly with the freaking dragon thing, I'm like, how would you even...
They used Harry Potter's broomstick.
They used the broomstick from Harry Potter, yeah. That, to me, was probably the most impressive thing, where I was like, even if you gave me this stuff to use, this motion capture technology, I don't think I would be able to figure that out. Like, clearly, these guys, James Cameron and Weta Digital, who were the actual visual effects team and studio who did this, they're just built different. Weta, even, they did the visual effects for Lord of the Rings too. So they are legitimately just like gods at this stuff.
I want to read this script because I want to see if he actually like wrote everything that went down as far as like what's happening in the world. And
I was thinking that they probably storyboarded extensively.
Yeah.
There are elements that had that kind of Mad Max, like you couldn't write this, you could just show it. Like, there's no way to describe on a script.
Yeah.
What you are seeing on screen.
That'd be an interesting read for sure.
So the any concept artist who worked on this movie, any
you are more than welcome to reach out to us. Our contact information will be in the description. We would love to have you on the podcast.
We would love to have you talk about it, or to just say you're an amazing artist.
Or just leave a comment.
You did a good job.
You can just leave a comment too. That's cool. Like, subscribe, show your friends, share the love.
That's your advertising for it. That to me was probably the most impressive part. Was that it feels like a
breathable world too, because there were scenes where I was like, cool, we're standing here looking at each other, that's easy to do, and then I'd be like, oh shit,
there's stuff all the way in the background.
The clouds are moving.
Yeah.
I was like, what madman would be like, I need those clouds to move?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, James Cameron is the guy in Titanic. There's a scene where Leonardo DiCaprio looks up at the night sky, and he just looks up and he sees stars. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, hey, by the way, for that hemisphere at that time of year, those are the wrong constellations.
So James
Cameron went back and put in the accurate constellations that you would have seen on the
There's something to be said about these guys who go back and redo their movies. Yeah. Where it's like, I appreciate it.
But that level
for
of
the
detail
pettiness, if nothing more.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of a cinematographer who was like, they're remastering my movie and they're going to like, you know, do something with all the colors, like they're recoloring it. And I'm like, they're like, oh, well, we're going to like change the lighting digitally and like you'll be able to see behind every shadow. And the cinematographer was like, all you're going to see behind the shadows are wires. Like, why do you want to see that
shot
whatsoever?
This for a specific reason. Yeah, that's funny.
Now, that being said, when James Cameron first promised multiple sequels to Avatar...
We were supposed to get him in 2018. What happened with that, James?
I don't think anybody believed him. I mean, I certainly didn't believe him. I was like, you made one, and it was the most expensive movie and one of the highest grossing movies of all time.
The most successful movie.
Yeah. So, like, what can you possibly do next? Not only did you make a really generic story anyway, what are you going to pull out for this one?
Yeah.
Sure enough, he is delivering on his promise.
If there's anything, though, that I will never bet against, it is James Cameron and a sequel.
Fair enough.
Just saying. In the world of film, in anything in film, in motion picture, I will not bet against James Cameron. I'm not saying it's going to be as successful as the first.
But I mean, Aliens.
But I think
Terminator 2.
I think we'll see some stuff.
You missed the preview at the end.
Differentiating from the first. Yeah, I did.
So for this re-release that they're doing for Avatar, they at the end of the movie have a preview of Avatar 2. It's just a short little, like maybe 2-minute clip. No, I will not spoil what happens, but there is no plot spoiler in it. Characters are unrecognizable. But the visual effects are basically identical. Not to say that it doesn't look better, but I feel like Avatar used this technology to the full extent that it possibly could.
Yeah.
That it's like doesn't even seem to be an improvement because they were already operating at full capacity.
Far ahead of their time. Yeah. So
that to me seems like that's going to be the case for the movie, unless they do something insane. Motion capture movies. Adventures of Tintin. I think that was a Steven Spielberg movie, I believe. He either produced it or he just directed it.
I think that was Scorsese.
Adventures of Tintin? No, not Scorsese. I don't believe so. You're thinking of Hugo.
I am thinking of Hugo.
Yeah.
They got the same font, same color on the posters.
That is true. They're both based on graphic novels too.
Yeah.
Adventures of Tintin was a motion capture movie, I believe, and that one, although it doesn't hold up, it kind of has that uncanny valley like Polar Express. I think that movie, equal to Avatar, uses the technology in a way where you're like, this just like it doesn't hold up as well, but feels like it could only have been done this way, using this kind of 3D animation in terms of stylistically the kind of shots and action sequences that they do in that movie. I was thinking about that before I even saw Avatar, so I'm glad I remembered that point before the end of this. So what would you rate the first Avatar movie?
I'd give it an A. Okay, never mind. I take it back. I think I'd give it a B. The only problem I have with this movie, it's not with the plot, because it's a summer blockbuster. I don't really care for plots during summer blockbusters. It's the visual effects are great, obviously. This movie is just so stupidly long. We don't need an hour and 15 of Sully learning, like, basically Pocahontas. We don't need an hour and 15 of Pocahontas. We could cut this to 30 minutes max.
Yeah, that was one of those things.
Keep him like, let's get us to the good part. Let's get us to the part where he's riding the thing, the dragon or whatever, the banshee. Sorry. Let's get to that part. That part's cool. That part's amazing. Let's get to the final fight when it's like a million choppers in the air and they're all going at it. That part's amazing. Let's get to that stuff. But that first hour and a half to 2 hours is like, what are we doing, man?
I had that thought right before they start their war at the end. I really badly had to go to the bathroom. And I was like, they're almost going to war. This is the climax of the movie. I don't want to miss it. And I remember thinking, okay, what do I remember about the movie from when I first saw it? And I remembered so much of the plot that I was like, there's at least half an hour left. I got time. I can't hold it for that long.
Because they're like, we're going to go to war. And then it's 15 more minutes of them talking. And it's like, what are we going to war or not? What are we doing here? This is like a Modern Warfare 2 loading screen? What's going on? What are we waiting on? That's the only thing for me that's separating this from an A, or stopping it from being an A movie.
Yeah.
It's like there's an appreciation for 3 hours when you have 3 hours of movie to tell. This movie does not have 3 hours of movie to tell.
Fair enough. I think for me, I wouldn't say the length was what bothered me so much as the same complaint I had back when I saw it the first time as a kid is the plot. And maybe part of why the length felt so egregious was because there's so little plot.
Yeah. And you don't like any of the characters.
Yeah. That's also a good point too.
That was one thing I noticed this time watching it. Was like, I don't like any of you. Because Sam Worthington has the charisma of a piece of wood.
Wet bread.
Sigourney Weaver is like a
she's like a pseudo villain.
I hated her for 30, 45 minutes in the beginning, and then I was like, okay, you're only using him because you need something.
Yeah.
The other guy was a dork and like was just a beta, basically. And then, the corporal the colonel was a character of like the classic, like, I lift 125 pounds and then the guy,
like dumb GI Joe,
the stupid like business guy was just another stereotype. So it's like, I don't like any of these people.
The colonel was a bad version of the colonel from Apocalypse Now, like a more cartoony version of that.
Yeah.
And the businessman,
but less fun,
less surfing.
Yeah.
And the businessman was like a cartoonish but not as actually funny version of Tom Cruise from Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I think because like you can have
that kind of like just one track minded, like so stereotypical. It's just the cliche. There's not even any development.
You can definitely have it.
You can do that, but
they went overboard.
It's not even one of those things where it's like it's played for laughs or it's kind of offset by the rest of the offbeat humor of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's just like that's his character. He is a serious person. We're expected to believe that this person exists in real life, not just in the movie, but like out in the real world.
Yeah,
and I just don't see that.
Yeah. So that's also why it took forever, because it's like my favorite character is the guy that's supposed to marry Zoe Saldana. But it's like, he's a blue guy, and he's only on the screen for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, we got a problem here.
Bring him back. He doesn't... Oh, wait. Did he die?
Yeah, he dies.
He dies.
He does.
No,
yeah. So he's not going to be in the sequel. Well, we didn't see a body. We didn't see a body. We saw him fall off the ship. Spoiler alert. But we didn't see a body.
It's a good point.
It's a film 101. If you don't see a body, they're not actually dead. Yeah. Michael Myers somehow coming back to life.
You don't see a body.
The millionth time.
But following cartoon logic, if they don't yell, "I'm okay," after they fall, then they probably are dead.
Yeah.
You didn't see a mini little explosion though. So
where would you rank this in the James Cameron filmography?
James Cameron pantheon.
Because it's definitely Terminator 2 at the top, right?
Terminator 2 is at the top.
Okay, cool.
Aliens is probably below that.
I would agree.
And I think Avatar is below that. Titanic and Avatar are kind of on the same level to me, where it's like...
I don't know, man. That Leonardo DiCaprio, he's something else in that movie.
There are certain movies where if they're on TV, I'm like, this is good enough, I'll watch it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
There are certain movies where if it's on TV and I'm not in the mood for it, I won't watch it.
Yeah.
Titanic and Avatar, I have to be in the mood for.
Interesting.
That's what I would say. Most of my complaint with Titanic is basically the same with Avatar, where I'm just like, this is too, like, everything else is impressive. The use of models in Titanic is almost on par with like what Christopher Nolan will do nowadays.
Yeah.
But the story is just too melodramatic for me to feel like I am learning something new by watching it, I guess I'd say. Although it has much better acting in my opinion.
I was going to say, Leo and Kate, that's like Leo and Kate's peak right there.
Yeah.
Just saying a lot during the careers they've had since that movie.
That's true. Yeah, she was probably of age for him.
Maybe hate is the reason he doesn't go for... we figured it out.
We figured it out, guys. Leo, if you're watching this, come on the podcast.
He's still chasing 26-year-old Kate Winslet.
I believe it.
Aren't we all?
I think that
I would agree with you for the record. I agree with that.
Okay.
That you're where you would put these movies.
Looking ahead to the sequels, I will see them in theaters. I have hopes that he brings something new to the table. And I have hopes that the visual effects will be just as outstanding as they were in this one. That's what I believe. That's about all I have to say.
Yeah. Not going to go see it in 3D, by the way.
Not seeing it in 3D. That. No, absolutely not. Stop making 3D movies.
3D movies are terrible.
Just don't do that anymore.
They deserve to not exist. You could tell this movie was shot for 3D.
Yeah.
The floating thingies and like stuff flying at the screen.
It's too much. It's too much. I have glasses. I'm not going to see a 3D movie. Stop it.
I just don't want a headache.
That's true. They give headaches too. Yeah.
I went to go. I've only seen one 3D movie in theaters.
I've seen
it was Green Lantern. Never again.
I remember there was an advertisement for 3D movies. I think it was Disney had an advertisement for 3D movies where they're in the theater watching something and like a pirate ship comes out of the screen and the kid reaches up and touches the pirate ship. And I was like, no way. And then the first 3D movie I ever saw, that didn't happen. And I was like, this is false advertising. This is horrible.
3D movies would be cool if they used the space of the actual theater.
Well, now you're talking about a 4D movie.
Right?
Avatar was also available in 4D.
I'm saying like, because you know when you sit down and watch a movie, something flying at the screen for everybody, it flies the same way.
Yeah.
But if it was like, you know, something's getting thrown at the screen and like it whizzes by my ear, but like for you it comes right at you.
Interesting.
You'd have to like use the actual space and like map
you would have
out.
to like shoot it in CinemaScope, so the screen is so large that it like actually.
That's the only way I could ever see 3D actually being kind of cool, where it's like, holy shit! I just saw the guy in row 3 get stabbed.
Augmented reality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
But that would be cool.
Yeah,
that's the only way I could see it. Otherwise, it's just kind of like,
or just VR.
You're living in my brain. This is silly.
That's one of those other things that I feel like Avatar also laid the foundation for was VR as well.
I feel like, isn't there a VR ride at Disney World? Of Avatar?
Yes. Of Avatar, I don't know.
That would be perfect.
I believe there.
Well, there's an Avatar World. I know that. At I think it's the one in Orlando.
Avatar World.
Yeah, it's like or not world, but like a space. You know how they do like the spaces.
Epcot.
Probably Epcot or Animal Kingdom, probably.
Interesting.
Which I was also thinking that too. I was watching this and I was like, this would be a dope theme park.
Oh, absolutely. James Cameron had that in mind too.
Which is, I mean, that's probably why
he's
the
thinking
Avatar
ahead.
World
Yeah.
to be. Yeah.
Now, the guy who makes the most expensive movie of all time is also at the same time thinking about making sequels for it. Of course, he's thinking about how can I merchandise this?
Merchandise this?
At the
How do I
same
get
time
my
too?
money back?
Who can I sell this to? Yeah.
Which he probably made like a $1 kajillion off this movie.
Oh yeah. Which it was worth it because Catherine Bigelow got to make Zero Dark 30, so we win in the end.
We all win.
So that's
support your summer blockbusters because they support local artists.
Yeah.
Or young artists, I guess I should say.
So if you haven't seen Avatar yet, it's at least worth watching once. It is popcorn fodder.
In theaters.
In theaters, that is arguably the best way to watch it too. So capitalize on this.
Put your phones away and don't go on FaceTime like the guy who was in our theater.
Oh God, yeah. Bring your kids too, because apparently it's a kids movie as well. Because you hear the kid narrating the final fight scene.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that I had already told the guy ahead of us to turn his phone off, I would have just turned around and been like, "Shut up, kid." I didn't want to do that. That's too rude. If you're an adult,
no. If you were taking your kids to a theater, they need to know how to behave. Them. Yeah. Like I'm not talking 2-year-olds. These were like 10-year-old kids, at least 8, maybe 8. Fair. But if you're in school and they're not behaving, stop.
I have a distinct memory.
Just keep them home.
When I saw this movie for the first time, back when I was in elementary school, I remember sitting either next to or a few seats away from a kid who was younger than me. He was probably in like maybe 3rd or 2nd grade. And there's a scene during the final fight scene where the crates of explosions crush a guy in between them. And it's on screen for like maybe a second. It's just another bloodless casualty of war in this movie. And I distinctly remember hearing the kid a few seats down from me going, "Did he die?" to whoever he was with. That's stuck with me to this day, where I'm like, maybe death in movie, if a kid can't process it, maybe it's like a little more impactful than we give it credit for, just to get a PG-13 rating.
We've been watching freaking...
Remove all the blood out of it and you're suddenly desensitized to it. It's like a kid would still be scarred by it. Like, come on, guys. And when that kid was narrating, I was like, why does this keep happening to me with Avatar? It's just twice now. So, yeah.
That's funny. I wouldn't call Avatar a kid's movie.
No, not
too long.
They curse too much.
It's too much going on for them to process.
Sigourney Weaver smokes a cigarette.
By the way, that cigarette is fake. Did you know that? It's all special effects.
Was it? Really? That's funny.
Isn't that crazy? That just shows the madness of James Cameron. To be like, we can't actually smoke on set, so we'll just CGI.
So we'll just CGI a cigarette. That's ludicrous.
What a Chad.
So yeah, at the end of the day, don't go on your phone in the movie theater.
Are you excited for the sequels? You've kind of alluded to you'll see them, or you said you'll see them.
I am
interested.
That is the best way I can describe it. Where I'm like, I'm not like, I gotta see Avatar 2. No, I'm more like, I wonder what he'll do for Avatar 2.
December 25th, I think. I think it's Christmas.
Not gonna go see it on Christmas.
I won't.
Actually, I maybe see it on Christmas. Hey, Dad, if you're watching,
go watch Avatar.
Dad or my sister, if either of you guys are watching it, let's see Avatar on Christmas Day.
Go watch Avatar 2.
Yeah.
2 Tar.
He's gonna watch this in like a week from now and be like, okay. No problem.
Yeah, it's funny. Cool.
Cool.
All right, any last words on Avatar?
Nope. What about you?
No. I'm good.
Alrighty. Let's
go. That's it for us this week. We will see you sometime within the next
2
year,
weeks.
hopefully.
Yeah. No, we have Halloween planned.
Oh, we do.
We have special
we have some stuff planned
October themes for Halloween.
Yeah, I got to get on my movies.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
So, all right. Well, we're out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you later.